Are we all synced on 7 p.m.?
Should be.
Okay. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Trustee Marquardt?
Here.
Trustee Forster?
Here.
Trustee Oppenheim?
Here.
Trustee Schenk?
Here.
Trustee Cook?
Here.
President Byrne?
Here.
And Trustee Takaoka gave prior notice that he would not be in attendance.
Okay. Would everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay. Is there a motion to appoint Trustee Cook President Pro Tem?
So made.
Second.
Roll call.
Trustee Marquardt?
Aye.
Trustee Oppenheim?
Aye.
Trustee Forster?
Aye.
Trustee Schenk?
Aye.
Trustee Cook?
Aye.
President Byrne?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. I don't see any citizens anywhere, so
I'm a citizen, but I'm also-
Yeah, no, I know, but I would suggest that means there's nobody here wishing to address the board since all the chairs are empty. So we'll go right to the official reports. Under the President's report, there are a couple of proclamations. The first is the Village President's proclamation of National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week, April 14th to the 20th, 2024. Whereas emergencies requiring police, fire, or emergency medical services can occur at any time, and when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property. And the safety of our police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from citizens who telephone the Vernon Hills Consolidated Community Communications Center. And public safety telecommunicators are the first and foremost critical contact our citizens have with emergency services. Public safety telecommunicators are a key component for the safety of our police officers, firefighters, and paramedics by monitoring their activities and providing critical information. Public safety telecommunicators for the Village of Vernon Hills, as well as the Countryside Fire Protection District, have contributed substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suppression of fires, and treatment of patients. Each telecommunicator routinely exhibits compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performance of their jobs. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Village Board of the Village of Vernon Hills declares the week of April 14th through the 20th, 2024, to be National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week in Vernon Hills, in honor of the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our village and its residents safe. And I just want to add to that, my sister worked in telecommunicating for a while before she went into records and had a long career at it. And boy, all I can tell you is it is an incredibly difficult job and requires just a certain kind of person to be able to handle that kind of situation. Because most of the time, well, a lot of the time, you're talking to somebody who's having one of the worst days of their life, and you got to be nice and even keel and make sure you get all the proper information and then get all that proper information out to the first responders. So it's an amazing job. And Chief, do you want to add anything? Or?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, and I couldn't say it better. The one thing is I'm listening to the proclamation that I think perhaps we may be missed, and that some people in the public may not be aware, is how much they add to an officer's effectiveness. They often serve as like an intelligence analyst, sorting through all kinds of information. I'll just give you an example. We might have a suspicious circumstance in a home that we're going to have to enter, and they're on Zillow looking at recent photos from that home so they can tell us before we're going in what that looks like. And it's just one example of the kind of work they do behind the scenes that makes first responders, police, and fire safer for us to do our job. True partners, and you said something really important, is that it's really difficult. I've said this my whole career. As a young officer, I used to have to give them breaks when we worked in a small comm center, and I was terrified for those 15 minutes that phone was going to ring, because it is so hard, the level of multitasking they do. It's I know I couldn't do it.
Yeah, they're very special people. Yeah. Very special.
Thank you.
You know, I'd like to add on,
Yes,
as you know, my wife utilized the 911 call not too long ago, and it's kind of ironic that Chief Smith just walked in, and I had heard the call after the fact, and it was a situation that went from 0 to 100 like that, and to keep my wife as calm as she was able to be on the phone with the dispatcher, kept her, okay, we need to do this, you need to check this, all in the meantime, knowing and affirming her that Countryside was on their way. I owe my life to that dispatcher. There's so many things that had to happen in order that night, and you all know, but when you hear it, you just see what they go through every day, because they're envisioning what's on the other line, and they have to talk to that person in that panic mode, in which, and keep them calm until, life-saving support arrives. So, it's well-deserved. They deserve everything they get, so really appreciate them. Thank you.
Yeah, well said, well said. Anyone else want to add something to it?
Yeah, I got a comment.
Yes, sir, Mayor.
Tom, I'm glad you brought up your sister, because I was thinking, because she obviously, what town was she in, Tom?
She worked for a couple. She worked for Round Lake and Wakanda, and then wound up at Lincolnshire.
Yeah. So kudos to her, and all our dispatch personnel provide a very, very important duty to not just the village, but obviously who's ever on the phone. And needless to say, we'll be talking about this central at our committee of the whole meeting tonight.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yep. Anything else? All right. Our other proclamation is 2024 Arbor Day Proclamation. Whereas having recognized the economic, aesthetic, and environmental value a thriving community forest brings to its residents and visitors, the Village of Vernon Hills has and continues to be committed to reforestation of the land within its corporate boundaries and to prudent management of its existing forest resources. The Village of Vernon Hills shall continue to enhance its reforestation and forestry management policies and practices, and shall continue to dedicate financial resources over and above Tree City USA requirements. The Tree City USA flag shall be flown at the Public Works Building on Arbor Day, April 26, 2024, to honor those residents and volunteers who have participated in the program of activities sponsored by the village. Therefore, be it resolved by Roger Byrne, President of the Village of Vernon Hills, that we hereby proclaim that the Village of Vernon Hills shall officially observe Arbor Day on Friday, April 26, 2024, and encourage citizens to participate in appropriate activities and to take advantage of the benefits of the parks and other natural areas in our community. Yeah, we've always been very into trees and that. Like, even when we had problems with the trees, we've been on top of what it took to not only take care of them or take down the bad ones, but always replacing with more than was there before.
Yeah. How many ash borer trees did we take down?
A lot.
It was
3,600.
so.
That's what we replaced.
Yep.
Yeah.
But we replaced
You know,
those trees.
is there still some left? I don't know. There probably is.
Well, all you have to do is take a look at a map from 30 or 40 years ago and a map now, and you'll see there's a lot more trees than there were then.
Yeah, yeah. No question about it. Yeah, I'll ask Public Works Director Chris, what's our next plague or disease to attack our trees?
Disease?
You know, I think that knowing what happened with the ash trees, what's going on with elm trees, American elm, that we have become much more cognizant of not putting all your eggs in one basket. We really try to diversify the trees we put out, even within a single block, not having a whole strip of all the same species. You know, the Chicago Botanic Garden has issued a list of trees. They say, I forget the exact slogan of it, but a series of trees for the future, you know, the trees on to 2050 that are going to do well in this region. So it's really about getting a diversified population of trees, because we're not going to be able to pick the next boar that comes along or the next disease. But when it does come, you just don't want to have all the same tree in the village. So you want to be resilient. So when you lose 5%, 10%, it doesn't just cause blight throughout the village.
Thank you.
Basket. That's it.
Okay, anything else on this subject? Okay, then moving on. Next is, I believe, Assistant Village Manager Petrov with sustainability initiatives and Earth Day and Arbor Day.
Absolutely, a perfect segue with the proclamation and Chris's comments. And as spring has arrived and we approach Earth Day, which is celebrated April 22nd, and a date intended to raise awareness of the need to protect natural resources, promote conservation, and encourage sustainability, we also associate spring as a season for renewal and a transformation. So this is the ideal time to provide an update on upcoming sustainability initiatives, to include the village's ongoing commitment to the Greenest Region Compact, sharing information on village sustainability planning efforts and our yearly objectives, along with information about events commemorating Earth Day and celebrating Arbor Day, which is April 26th. For our sustainability planning for the period of fiscal year 24-25, staff will be pursuing several board-approved initiatives that contribute to sustainability. These initiatives include the LED conversion program for village streetlights, the planning and implementation of an EV charging station on village property, the implementation of the master plan for restoration of Harvey Lake, development of the village's pedestrian and bike master plan, a bicycle wayfinding project, which includes signage to encourage bicycle transportation and connectivity to village businesses and attractions, review of electric aggregation. Staff is currently working with consultants and further researching this topic. The CV Ditch Stream Restoration Program, which is intended to reduce sediment leading into Lake Charles. Sediment removal at the mouth of the stream leading into Lake Charles, which includes a trap prior to water entering the lake, and the Lake Charles Shoreline and Channel Restoration Project. For background on the Greenest Region Compact, during 2022 by resolution, the village formally joined the Metropolitan Mayor's Greenest Region Compact. The GRC offers support and framework for mayors and community leaders to identify initiatives. The GRC is the village's compass that provides staff direction with initiatives that contribute to sustainability. The next slide will show the framework, which focuses on 10 categories that include climate, economic development, energy, land, leadership, mobility, municipal operations, sustainable communities, water, waste, and recycling. The GRC framework provides objectives for municipalities that are achievable and well-suited for municipal action. The 2023 annual report is on the village website at the top of the Greenest Region Compact page. The village has also created a sustainability webpage. Within this page, information is shared on how sustainability became incorporated into governance, background on village inclusion of ecological stewardship in our planning, our early initiatives, and this page is where we maintain our sustainability planning guide and yearly objectives. The village will continue to stay engaged with our residents and share information on sustainability programs. One example from earlier today is members of Public Works and the Forestry Department, along with our Director, Chris Venata, organized an event for our Vernon Hills Seniors Organization. This included an informational session by staff on the benefits of removing invasive vegetation and the restoration of natural assets to include our open spaces, our lakes, our streams. This event also included a native plant giveaway, where plants were made available for seniors to place in community gardens or for personal use. We would also like to thank Waste Management, who again participated. Waste Management donated 3 trees to contribute to the Vernon Hills tree canopy. Planting trees within the village is an important objective within the compact, as creating and restoring the urban tree canopy has numerous benefits. And today's tree planting is very timely as we prepare to celebrate Arbor Day, which is Friday, April 26th. If persons have not recently visited the village's Memorial Arbor Theater, we encourage all to see this beautiful venue in person. Located on Fairway Drive, just south of the intersection with Lakeview, this venue includes walking trails that lead visitors on a journey throughout the property. There are informational placards about the types of trees within this location, and very soon we will be releasing our 2024 Arbor Theater concert schedule. This is the perfect venue to enjoy music in an intimate outdoor setting. Another village amenity that we'd like to promote is Harvey Lake, which is part of the village's open spaces and preservation efforts. Public Works continues to restore this site and make it accessible. Recent efforts include removing invasive vegetation, construction of a bridge to provide walkable access around the entire area, so all can enjoy this beautifully preserved property and lake. Finally, in recognition of Arbor Day, appreciation is expressed to all that contribute to restoring the tree canopy and preserving it in Vernon Hills. This includes the village board for funding many of these initiatives, along with Director Chris Venata and all the members of Public Works who are dedicated to ensuring a beautiful Vernon Hills. To earn Tree City status, a municipality must have a certified forestry department and spend at least $2.08 per capita on forestry initiatives. The village traditionally doubles this amount, demonstrating commitment to this initiative. This is the 32nd year that Tree City status has been earned. And as I conclude my comments on Earth Day and Arbor Day initiatives, I would like to note this board's efforts in reclaiming brown spaces and converting these areas into parks and green spaces for the community. This includes a former Brown site, the Nike site, which is now athletic fields, a former commercial space at the intersection of Hawthorne and Lakeview, which last had Opa as a restaurant, which is now park space, the former Lashin Center, which is now a beautiful park, and a former commercial space at Town Center, which just this year is being dedicated as park space. Creating green space is a priority among the Mayor's Conference and contributes to reducing urban heat and is a key objective to reducing the impacts of climate change. I would say that Vernon Hills does this very well. Chris, any additional comments you'd like to share?
Yeah, I would just like to comment, not only have we received the Tree City USA, but for the past 3 years, we've also earned what's called the Growth Award from the Tree City USA group. And that's showing an above level of excellence. There are several categories that you can apply for. So 3 years going now, we've had an extra designation that we received as long as the Tree City. So just to echo John's statements, we want to thank the board for supporting all these efforts and thank our public works staff who do a really good job executing and seeking these all out. So thank you.
Okay. Anything else on this? Okay. Next item is the Finance Director Treasurer for the 2025 final budget.
Yes, thank you, sir. So regarding the fiscal year 2025 final budget ordinance, item Q on the omnibus agenda tonight, nothing new to comment, but I wanted to take a minute and just recap our transparent budget process. So again, the draft budget has been posted on the village's website for public viewing since February 28th. The proposed budget was presented and discussed at committees of the whole meetings on March 5th and 19th. A public hearing was on the proposed budget was held on April 2nd, and tonight is the final step, really adopting the ordinance 2024-058. Also included in your board packets this evening, I have provided a memo outlining the changes between the draft budget and the final budget. The final budget does include 2 one-time funding transfers from the general fund to the capital fund and the Vehicle and Equipment Replacement Fund, as discussed at the 2 committee of the whole meetings in March. As we conclude another budget season, I just want to first thank the board for their time, input, and thoughtful consideration. This effective oversight allows for a smooth and successful budget process. I would also like to thank Manager Timoney, all department heads, and staff who provide significant time and efforts into this months-long process. It definitely makes my efforts of coordination that much easier, and is greatly appreciated. So thank you all. One last comment on the fund balance policy, also included in your board packets. To memorialize the fund balance policy discussion we had at our last committee of the whole budget presentation, included in omnibus agenda as item R tonight is the revised fund balance policy for your consideration. This new policy will be reviewed and updated as needed annually in conjunction with the budget process. Those are all my prepared comments for tonight, and I'll turn it back over. Thank you.
Any comments or questions from any board members? Yeah, it's been a long and very transparent process, several months, and that's the way we do it around here, so it's always a good thing to do. Make it as many steps as you can, because it makes it nice and transparent. All right, thank you. No other speaking parts from anybody on staff, right? Okay, then in that case, next thing is omnibus vote agenda. Is there a motion to approve items A through R?
Can we pull O?
Pull O,
Yeah.
okay.
And then motion A through R, but not including O.
Yeah, and B, then it would be a motion to approve A through N and P through R.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Markwart?
Aye.
Trustee Oppenheim?
Aye.
Trustee Forster?
Aye.
Trustee Schenk?
Aye.
President Byrne?
Aye.
Chairman Pro Tem Cook?
Aye. Motion carries. Item O, approval and passage of an ordinance 2024-056, an ordinance amending section 14-1 of the Village Code of the Village of Vernon Hills regarding the illegal possession of cannabis.
Chief, can you shed some light on that?
Certainly. We realized in recent weeks that this was an oversight on our part when Illinois allowed for the small amount of marijuana to be legally possessed and purchased. We never updated our ordinance. So our ordinance still prohibits even what is otherwise a lawful amount of cannabis to be possessed. However, there still are perhaps from time to time a scenario where someone is not compliant with state law, and rather than charging them with a state charge, the local ordinance is a more appropriate way to go. So that could happen if, say, a person under the age of 21 is in possession of cannabis, or a person is out of compliance otherwise with what is required by the state, and rather than charging them with a state charge, this is a less serious way to hold someone accountable. The fact that it's taken us a few years to realize this is an indication of how seldom it is we take enforcement action on cannabis.
So in the second sentence, under the code, officers can cite a person of the village's local adjudication. That's basically you at discretion of the officers to give them a lesser charge if it's a
Absolutely.
if it falls in line of the more serious state charge.
That is correct. Okay. That is correct. Just provides an option for an enforcement mechanism less significant than a state charge.
But still probably going to be impactful.
We would hope.
You would hope. That'd be the goal, to kind of not.
And it basically brings our thresholds in line with all of the state thresholds.
The state law, correct.
Thank you.
Okay.
Of course.
So
Then is there a motion to approve item O?
motion to approve item O.
Second.
Motion is second. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Markwart?
Aye.
Trustee Oppenheim?
Aye.
Trustee Forster?
Aye.
Trustee Schenk?
Aye.
President Byrne?
Aye.
Chairman Pro Tem Cook?
Aye. Motion carries. No unfinished business, correct? Okay, then under new business, approval and passage of resolution 2024-012, a resolution waiving permit fees associated with the Lincolnshire Riverwoods Fire Protection District Station 51 headquarters project. portion of the property known as 909 South Milwaukee Avenue.
I'll have this one.
Yeah, Director Jennings, go ahead.
At the Committee of the Whole meeting a couple of weeks ago, the Lincolnshire Riverwoods Fire Protection District concept review was discussed. As part of that discussion, there was a request in their introductory letter to waive the fees associated with the project. The staff recommendation at that time was to waive the permit fees, but consider retaining the development escrow and the technical review fee. The Committee of the Whole asked staff to come back with a resolution waiving the fees and some additional information on the two fees that we were originally suggesting should be retained. At this time, we've reviewed some of the other development projects by other taxing bodies, and we do find that there are development review fee waivers of the technical review fee portion. So the resolution that you have in front of you does waive that technical review fee as well, which would have been $1778.95. But we are suggesting that the development escrow fee, which pays outside consultants, stormwater review, et cetera, we are suggesting that that should be provided by the Fire Protection District so that the village does have some money available to pay for outside review. So the resolution in the packet would be, is written that way. And I believe that would be the $3,000 review. And so that can be returned at the end of the project. The typical project is roughly $1,000 in outside review fees.
Okay. Comments or questions from the board?
Yeah, I got a comment.
Yes, sir.
Is this truly the best location for this firehouse? And I'll leave this thought for everybody. What about making a deal with the College of Lake County and put it on some of the land that isn't developed there, and you got your own traffic light to control, and it's not a floodplain or anything else. I'm just asking, what other locations do they truly look at?
Thoughts on?
Well, at this point, they're in their due diligence period, which runs through July on this particular property. The technical review, the preliminary engineering, the geotechnical review, all of the items that they need to do associated with this property, they're on the clock themselves for that. So I would imagine if they explore this property and it turns out to be cost prohibitive for this development, they'll continue the search. So I'm not prepared tonight to be able to speak to other properties they looked at. I do know from talking to them that they looked at additions on the two locations that they're intending to consolidate, but I'm not aware of the full universe of properties that they've considered so far.
Yeah, and I'm kind of looking at, the College of Lake County site. It's a clean slate. There's plenty of land there. So could somebody just ask the chief over there the question, and those guys, it'd be nice to know.
Will do.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, then is there a motion to approve a resolution 2024-012?
Motion.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion a second. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Marquardt?
Aye.
Trustee Oppenheim?
Aye.
Trustee Forster? Aye. Trustee Schenk?
Aye.
President Byrne?
I'm going to abstain on this one.
Chairman Pro Tem Cook?
Aye. Motion carries. All right. Any communications anybody wants to share? Any other new business somebody wants to mention?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
on, you know, how many asphalt driveways do we think we have in town?
Don't know.
I think we'll have to get back to you on that one. Don't know off
Well,
the,
you know, I'm just, you know, referencing what happened and was featured in the Herald today for the Prospect Heights. And it was just, you know, warning people about being scammed. It was a good article. And it had photos.
Oh, about
So
the scam?
I'm sure we have any number of asphalt driveways around town, but it's just kind of like buyer beware season.
Yeah, you're referencing a scam article about people being scammed by.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, you know, make sure the guy that knocked on your door wants to do it that night. You know, you take the pause with, okay?
Well, and that goes for absolutely any major work you want to have done on your house. You know, do your due diligence. Right. Chief Kreese.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for bringing that up. And, you know, just to, I think the key takeaway here is anyone ringing your doorbell, you know, please, we want the community to exercise caution. Buzzwords there is, I've got leftover material, my boss doesn't know I have this, I've got a deal for you today, anything like that. You know, some of the first questions we would ask if you even engage, is whether or not they have a solicitor permit issued by the village, ask for ID from their company, and never ever agree to any work the same day, because next thing you know, one of these scammers will be up on your roof. They'll be in the backyard. Many times they're actually burglary crews that are just trying to distract a person at the front door, and their partner is working in the back door. And some of these people are very skilled thieves. They're not skilled in anything else in life, but they train each other to be skilled thieves, and they will get in your house. So please use caution when answering the doorbell, and a contractor's out there with a bucket or a truck or anything. We have a lot of scams. It's a lot more than driveways. The imagination runs wild. So we'd just ask people to get credentials from the company, ask if they have a village permit, if you're going to engage at all. Thank you.
Well, and it never hurts to get a second or third opinion, too. Yes,
I was
Mayor.
just going to say, Chief, can you and Andrew and Chris, you know, cook up something for an email to everybody in town on that, or put it on the website and such?
Yeah, I'll absolutely direct our crime prevention officer to reach out and make sure we are alerting the community if he's not already working on that. But thank you for bringing that to our attention.
And not lastly, what about lead pipes in town? Chris, the original section of town was built back in the 50s. Do you think there's any lead pipes over in those neighborhoods, which is Country Club Estates?
There's definitely a chance. I don't know the details specifically, but I know that Lake County should be doing an inventory. They usually, I don't know if their GIS page is up, but all the water utilities now are putting up GIS pages that you can navigate to, find your home, and it will list the material type. It'll say if you have copper, lead, galvanized, or unknown. The IEPA and the EPA have mandated a requirement that every water utility does this inventory. I think the deadline is like 2027 to come up with an inventory and a plan to replace, but a lot of them are very proactive and ahead of that deadline. So I can look up and double check here in a minute, but I believe if anyone wants to find that information out, I'd recommend reaching out to Lake County Public Works and or looking on the website. You should be able to navigate and find the lead pipe inventory.
So once again, put something on our website that people can take a look at, give them where they go with the county.
Yeah, some
Okay.
kind of a link.
Yeah, we can definitely, we'll work with Lake County and find out their own information they're promoting, and we can redirect people through our social media and website that way.
Okay, good.
All right, and last but not least, with the LED lighting, you know, that we're using, we're going to replace what with all our street lights at some point.
Yes.
Okay. So if it's just a street light, we don't have to worry about winter storms or ice storms really, you know, diminishing the brightness of the light. Because it's, well, what about the traffic signals?
Signals because of the heat.
So
Right.
the LEDs that we use, they haven't shown to have any degradation due to temperature or weather changes. They actually are much more resilient than the high pressure sodium vapor, which you see in a lot of areas where some of the costs that I ran, you saw at one of the previous meetings, took into account a significantly less amount of service calls. When we do get those strong storms, the cold weather, we get a lot of calls about lights out with the high pressure sodium. The LEDs are shown to be much more resilient through that time. They actually, rather than just going out, they just slowly fade over time. So a lot of times they'll give you the lifespan of an LED, 10, 15 years. That is at it being able to shine it in, I believe the number is like an 80% of its original level, but it'll just slowly diminish. So it actually can last much longer before people notice that the lights seem to be getting dimmer out there. But they're shown to be even more resilient than the lights we use today.
Okay.
And traffic.
All right. Thank you.
Well, I think he was also referencing the
Traffic light.
thing that nobody had anticipated with traffic lights, that they would cover with ice and not,
They don't
that
produce
the
heat.
old lights generated enough heat that it kept it from freezing over.
And they have heated ones now.
Yeah.
so.
But
Right.
yeah, they've taken care of that, correct?
I don't have as much information on the traffic lights, but I can look into that.
Okay.
I know that.
All right.
Mike, what do you say? The actual LED has a heater?
I'm sorry, what about the LEDs?
Well, how are they heated?
There's, on a lot of the traffic lights, I know there's a company, in fact, I even know from the UP, there's an individual, they found that there was a problem with LED lights because they don't produce the heat. So they actually have a band or a ring that goes into the lights itself on traffic lights that actually heat up. And I think I believe too, they have a thermostat mark on them. So they can regulate when the temperature drops that they turn on.
So they work in the UP.
The individual that I know has a patent on it is up in the UP.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, any other communication, new business of any kind? All right, if not, then is there a motion to adjourn and go to committee of the whole?
Motion to adjourn and go to the committee of the whole.
Second.
A motion, a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are adjourned and going to committee of the whole.
Okay. Is there a motion to appoint Trustee Cook, President Pro Tem for Committee of the Whole?
I'd like to nominate Trustee Cook to be the President Pro Tem for the duration of the meeting.
Second.
Okay. Roll call.
Trustee Schenk.
Aye.
Trustee Forster. Aye. Trustee Markwart.
Aye.
Trustee Oppenheim.
Aye.
Trustee Cook.
Aye.
President Byrne.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. First item is approval of the committee of the whole meeting minutes of April 2nd, 2024. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. Any comments, questions, corrections? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Schenk.
Aye.
Trustee Forster.
Aye.
Trustee Markwart.
Aye.
Trustee Oppenheim.
Aye.
President Byrne.
Aye.
Chairman Pro Tem Cook.
Aye. Motion carries. Second item is the 911 consolidation update. Village Manager and
Thank you, Trustee Cook. I'll kick us off this evening. Thanks for your time. Over the past few years, as you know, Chief Crease has given periodic updates on the progress of our 911 consolidation efforts. This evening, we wanted to take a little bit more time and give the board a more comprehensive update on where we are in this process. We are within about 60 days of having some very significant decisions in our process, which is very exciting. There's been a tremendous amount of work that has taken place by the group over the course of the past 18 months or so. That's primarily been around two main components: the establishment of the new entity's governance, which is called LakeCom, and also the creation and alignment of the finances and cost sharing for that new governance model. Both Chief Crease and our Finance Director, Tom Lyons, have been instrumental in helping the progress on those two initiatives, and they've really shown great leadership throughout the last year in helping our larger group work towards those goals. So this evening what we're going to do is we're going to first talk about the problem, which is the why. Why are we progressing and proceeding with 911 consolidation? We're also going to give you a quick recap of the history that we've been through to date. It's actually been going on for longer than the last few years. This has been since the early, mid-2015s or so. We're also going to then give you a breakdown of the proposed governance structure and the financials that go with that. And then lastly, give you a sneak peek of what the next steps are for the village and our other partners. I do want to note that we're joined this evening with Chief Chuck Smith of the Countryside Fire Protection District, and also a member of his Board of Trustees and of his leadership team. And with that, Chief Crease, I'll turn it over to you to get us started.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, the Village Board, you've seen this slide before, but I always start with, kind of the state of the current situation in Lake County. So PSAPs are the public safety answering points. That's a dispatch center, basically. And this map here demonstrates through happenstance how we have developed over a number of decades of how Lake County is situated. And I want to start by reminding everyone that people don't use the 911 system only from their house. And that was the case 20 years ago. But now most 911 calls are cellular. They are calling 911 from the roadway, from the bike trails, from school, from work. For a number of reasons, these boundaries that you see have really become more of a problem in recent years. This next slide, again, demonstrates not only is the dispatch center boundary completely uneven and haphazard, but this represents the difference between the fire dispatching boundary and the police dispatching boundary. So again, it's no one's fault. We're not here to point fingers at anybody, but through just a set of circumstances, we have a very disruptive police dispatching environment. And that has real consequences. And I could share with you some stories of that. But when we say the main problem here is call transfers, my partnership with Chief Smith over the years, we've both shared some stories, and I thought it was important perhaps. He's got a slew of ones he could choose from, but I thought we should start with an example of the consequence of the current state of affairs in Lake County.
Thank you, Chief Crease, and thank you to the board for having me here this evening. So yeah, to Chief Crease's point, we've been working on this dispatch issue, if you'll call it, for better than 20 years. We're always trying to find how to make it better that these call transfers don't affect the outcome of our service delivery out on the street, whether it's police, fire, EMS. And as we know, seconds count in this business. And over the years, we've had many times where calls have been answered by one dispatch agency, and transferred to another and transferred to another. And by the time they get to us, we might already be 5 minutes into a call before we even get notified that there's an emergency. So I wanted to share a couple examples on how this happens. And the ones that we've had, fortunately, didn't have tragic outcomes, but were seconds, if not minutes away from outcomes being much worse. The first one I'll talk about was on Hickory Street in Mundelein back in probably 2016. It's in our jurisdiction right by Route 45 and the Jewel by the viaduct there. It's Lake County Sheriff jurisdiction. So Lake County Sheriff is the primary answering point for that area if someone were to dial 911 from their phone, home landline. In the middle of the night, a woman woke up, her house was on fire, got outside, called 911. The cell call went to a Mundelein cellular tower. So a Mundelein police dispatch answered the phone and recognized that there was a structure fire, but it wasn't in Mundelein's jurisdiction. It was in Lake County Sheriff jurisdiction. So they put the caller on hold and said, we need to transfer to Lake County Sheriff. Hold on, please. Transfer over to Lake County Sheriff. Lake County Sheriff gets on the line. They ask what the emergency is. The lady says, once again, my house is on fire. I need help. And Lake County Sheriff recognizes, okay, there's a fire. We don't dispatch for fire. We need to transfer you to Countryside Fire Departments to get the fire department en route. So they transfer, at that point, the call to Countryside, which is located at this time in Vernon Hills. Vernon Hills and Countryside answer that phone together, recognize that it's a fire call. Our fire dispatcher recognizes there's a structure fire, dispatches the units, and the first unit that is actually due in that area is Mundelein's fire engine right there at the corner of Hickory and 45. So it went through 5 or 6 minutes of transfers before the fire engine that was about 2 blocks down from the house was ever dispatched to a fire. And so by the time they got there, that house was a complete loss. The other one that I wanted to bring up happened in Long Grove. Long Grove is part of our jurisdiction. We cover the northern third of Long Grove, while Long Grove Fire Protection covers the southern 2/3. Once again, a resident recognized his house was on fire, got outside, called 911, and Lake County Sheriff picked up. Got the address, recognized Lake County Sheriff has to determine which fire department it goes to, and heard the address in Long Grove and immediately said, okay, we need to get Long Grove Fire Department going. Transferred the call to Red Center, which is not the right fire department. Red Center gets the call, recognizes, well, this is Countryside's call, we need to transfer you. Hit the transfer button and lost the caller. Caller has to pick up the phone again, once again dial 911. Lake County Sheriff picks up, immediately transfers to Countryside. This time, we get our resources on the road, and by the time the first units got on scene and made entry into this house, the fire had been burning long enough that the first floor nearly caved in as our first set of firefighters went in the door. That house also was a complete loss. So these are just a couple examples of the problems that occur throughout the county on a regular basis. Thousands and thousands of calls are answered daily across the county. Even if just 1% of these calls are transferred wrong or dropped, you're talking maybe 10 calls a day, 15 calls a day in this county where somebody called 911 for help and got disconnected or sent to the wrong place. And that's just a problem that we've been working really hard for a long time to fix, and we're really close to being there. So,
Well, that's been enhanced by the fact that so few people now even have landlines.
Right.
Everybody's going back to their cells.
Yeah, so.
Because I've told Chief before that happened to me with one of my first iPhones, trying to turn it off, accidentally triggered the emergency thing, and the callback came from Mundelein, even though I was in Vernon Hills because I'm far enough north that it was picked up by a cell tower from Mundelein.
Yeah, there's plenty of areas. Vernon Hills is not immune, even though Vernon Hills has their own PSAP here, where a cell call from Greg's Landing, for instance, that area gets picked up potentially at a Mundelein cellular tower.
Well, I was right by Public Works, and Mundelein picked it up.
Of course. Yeah, look at all those boundaries, and all of those represent a potential transfer need. It happens quite frequently. The other issue, and we're going to dive into this just a little bit later, but with all these different boundaries, it's also, I think this chart gives a good representation of the financial impact of the current state of affairs when it comes to public safety dispatching. Because there hasn't been a global solution to the issue over the years, you find a real disparate impact on how a jurisdiction is paying for its services, and some are providing services, others are contracting, and it's all over the chart where the economics, and we're going to get into that in a few slides, but I think this picture is worth keeping in mind as we talk about as we get to the economics. Chief Smith mentioned about the history of this. I find it ironic that my first week as chief in Vernon Hills, after finishing a 4-year consolidation project that I was knee-deep in North Shore and consolidating 4 agencies down there on my last day of service, I came here, and my 3 days in, I was invited to a meeting and got a taste of just how much work there is to be done in Lake County. This 2017 report was an eye-opener, I think, for a lot, and encouraged all of us to start working to reduce call transfers, to make some improvements, improve interagency response, better shared data. I can tell you that as just today, and you're going to see different strategies of this. Just today, we had a very, very important kickoff of technology that has stemmed from these studies. So from that 2017 study, it led to hiring. The village made an investment, Countryside made an investment, our other partners made an investment, and we published a report in 2019 that resulted in us creating this core requirement of, the report said it's feasible for Lake County agencies to consolidate, and we came up with a mission, a core requirement of any consolidation. And we generated from that what we call IGA number 1. It's really not the first IGA the partners did, but we always envisioned a 2-stage IGA. And this IGA number 1 is what we're currently operating under, and importantly, its signatures are all the other, not all the 12 PSAPs serving part of Lake County, but it started with 9 of us. 9 dispatch centers agreed to come together and work to really get this ball rolling and do a more significant study. That study has come to an end now, and that's why we're before you today. The result of that study is to create a second IGA, intergovernmental agreement, that will create this new joint governance organization. And when I say joint governance, that means that each jurisdiction that signs on to be a member will have an equal vote in the oversight of this organization. It's important. There's a lot of work to make something like this happen. This is an organization that eventually could have upwards of 150 employees, and it doesn't have a single employee today. So a lot of work to be done, and what we plan to present in May to you and all the other partner jurisdictions is a pathway to form this this organization, and we're going to talk more about that as the night goes on. I think it's appropriate to highlight just how fortunate we are that Lake County Board was early on partners in identifying the challenge at hand in Lake County and engaged in the partnership with the public safety agencies and really stepped up and showed some leadership. They've invested over $40 million to build what's called the ROC, the Regional Operations Center, which will house the new state-of-the-art PSAP, which is now called LakeCom. This is a specialty-built building designed to withstand anything Mother Nature can throw. If you've been to our building where Countryside and Vernon Hills works out of, there's glass windows surrounding the entire PSAP. This is not a well thought out location because when Mother Nature hits, you want to be able to get the right resources to the right place, and so you've got to withstand it. So if you could see the wall design in this building, it is without a doubt going to be the strongest, safest building to be in Lake County. So the operational concept of Lake Com is, again, a new joint governance organization that each of the jurisdictions that are served by Lake Com will have a representative vote on it, but importantly, to understand, it's not a new taxing body. The way it's paid for is by contributions from each of those jurisdictions. The membership, the structure of this IGA is proposed to allow for all jurisdictions that are wholly or partly in Lake County to join Lake Com and be a member. And although the sheriff has announced right now that he's not continuing the planning to be a original member of Lake Com, the organizational structure, the documents all allow for a on-ramp for the sheriff's partnership in this when and if he chooses to do so. So there's a lot that goes on here. I'm going to, again, just a key point of what is the goal, what do we want to accomplish, and the next couple slides will dive into this a little more.
Okay, so we're going to get a little bit into the proposed structure of the new Lake Com organization. For the past 2 years, I've had the privilege of representing Vernon Hills on our PSAP Consolidation Committee, along with our other PSAPs in Lake County, as well as working on our governance working group to establish the proposal that's in front of you. So just to give a quick breakdown of how this would work, and again, as the chief mentioned, this is a new entity, and the benefit of this new arrangement is that there's no longer customers, you're now all members. So everyone who's a part of Lake Com will have a seat at the table in the member board of directors. As it's currently drafted right now, that representative from each municipality or district would be the board president or a trustee, or at that person's discretion, a delegate in their place. The member board of directors from there would then, through a nominating committee, elect an executive board or an executive committee, which would meet monthly to facilitate the general governing business of Lake Com. That's a 7-member group that has a very diverse makeup of individuals. There's a member board chair and member board vice chair, which are actually members of the board of directors. There's also then a municipal administrator representative, a representative from the Lake County Board, 2 fire representatives, one from a fire protection district and one from a municipal fire department, and then lastly, a representative from a law enforcement agency or chief of police. That committee will oversee the executive director, who will then obviously oversee the staff of Lake Com, which, as Chief Priest mentioned, is upwards of potentially 115, 120 people when this is all developed. Assisting with that will be an advisory committee. So Vernon Hills, for example, will have representation on the law enforcement group for the advisory committee to make sure that Vernon Hills' needs are being met as part of Lake Com. And then lastly, to the right, you'll see in blue, functioning in parity with the Lake Com member board would be a new joint ETSB. We'll get into that on the next slide to show you how that looks. Okay, so as we mentioned, there's going to be 2 IGAs that are going to be before the board in coming May. The first one is going to be establishing the PSAP governance for Lake Com. As you can see in the yellow box there, those are the current PSAPs operating in Lake County that are currently partners on the proposed PSAP. The governing document will establish the governance structure. It'll have bylaws for the organization. a job description for our executive director, estimates for the new budget, breakdown of the cost-sharing model, and then working in conjunction with that is a separate ordinance which is establishing a new LakeCom joint ETSB, and that would essentially be the dissolution of the current ETSBs in Lake County and the forming of one new joint ETSB for all those entities. And that would be governed by an ordinance adopted by each respective jurisdiction. And the important thing to note here is that with the parallel approval of these two documents, you're aligning the governing authority through the JETSB and the use of the 911 surcharge revenues for each entity and the operational authority that's established through the governing IGA for LakeCom. So those two have to work in conjunction together. And again, both of these IGAs are in their draft form. They were recently endorsed by our PSAP Consolidation Committee, and they're expected before the board at one of our board meetings in the upcoming month of May.
So, very busy slide here, and I'm not going to take you through every arrow and every moment of this, but as I mentioned back in 2017 when we received the first study, we had more problems than just having multiple dispatch centers. We had multiple technologies throughout the county, and we knew whatever we did, we had to first get everyone on the same system, which we refer to as a CAD, a computer-aided dispatch system, and a records management system, and this was a lot of work. I can tell you today, this morning at 7 a.m., we went live with the countywide CAD and mobile RMS system, and I saw Sergeant James at roll call at 6 o'clock tonight, and it was his first time logging in a new system, and he hadn't filtered down to just Vernon Hills and Libertyville, which is traditionally what we've had, and he woke up the computer to see 900 units on the system. So all of the jurisdictions that are involved in this, all of the fire rigs, all of the police units, all of the computers at work, all now have a link to share information. This is a huge improvement for efficiencies. There's an immediate cost savings of doing this. Needed to be done before we took, the next leap, and a great partnership to get this this done. The second line of effort there is the rock facility. It is on track. It's paid for. The county has not asked us to pay them back for it. There certainly will be some fees for the use of that building, for the upkeep of that building, the contribution, but it's being built. I would encourage anyone that's up on Winchester Road, west of 21, to take a drive through the county and through the county campus. It's the most farthest northwest corner of that campus. It's pretty impressive. You can't go beyond the gate, but you'll see it from the road without a problem. And then we're talking about physical building the organization of LakeCom. That's what these IGAs do. And importantly, as Kevin mentioned, we have to align the JETSBs. The Joint Emergency Telephone System Board is the authority to spend surcharge dollars that we all pay. So every cell phone you have, or every cell phone you're paying for your children, in some cases adult children, I'm sure, and your landlines, your office lines, all of that, there's a tax on that helps fund the system. It all goes to the state returns it to us, and our research tells us it's very important to get the interest of those communities aligned that are receiving those funds with the interest of the communities that are operating the PSAP, and that's an important step. And you're going to see some conditions in the ordinances that we present to you to make sure both those things happen together. I mentioned there's 37 agencies part of this consolidation effort at this time. So this is what the 7 PSAPs are providing services to now. And our goal is to hopefully have all 37 of these agencies or their governing bodies adopt the ordinances here to move forward. It is possible that some of them may choose not to. We can't speak to that. But we're going to plan, and we have planned, Lakecom to be able to support all of these. Before we get in...
Chief, because it's relevant. So these 37 agencies will then pay into the PSAP? Is that
that's
goal?
Correct.
And they will probably look at the cost of that and the service they're getting versus what they would currently have?
We're gonna touch on that, absolutely.
Okay. I know it's a long discussion, and I just want to...
Nope, we've got some information to share with you. And so to set that conversation up, our 2019 study actually took 2018 data and estimated what we are spending collectively, a true cost for PSAP services. And with a pretty conservative escalator at 2% a year, the 6 PSAPs involved today, it's really 7 because Vernon Hill's number here represents us and Countryside. Adjusted for inflation would be $19.8 million that collectively we're spending today. So that's somewhat of a comparison. I know it's important that as stewards of public money, we keep that in mind. But I want to make really clear that my recommendation to this board is, regardless of the economic impacts of this decision, it's the right public safety decision to make. So whether it costs more or costs less, I promise you I would have the same recommendation. I think it's the right thing to do. And then I'm going to turn it over to Finance Director Lyons to give you a little more insight into the budget side of this.
Thank you, Chief. So diving into Lakecom's estimated annual budget for year 1, just a high-level breakdown between core and personnel. Total budget of $17.6 million for all-in cost. As you can see, personnel is a large portion of that, $14 million, about 80%, which is consistent with many government entities. The revenue side of things, the authority to spend the surcharge revenue that's been discussed already would fall under the new joint ETSB of Lake County. And with all agencies included, the 37 mentioned, we're looking at about $8.5 million of annual surcharge revenue funneling through that entity. For our budget purposes for Lakecom, $7.5 million have been allotted for the annual use in Lakecom. And then just to break it down here with expenses and revenues together, on the bottom of the slide, we have our $17.6 million budget. And when we back out the revenues coming into Lakecom, we're left with $9.1 million net budget. And this is the portion that is to be allocated then amongst all the members. So I'm going to flip it back over to Chief to go through that allocation process.
So it's one problem, one finance problem to come up with the estimated budget of what this is going to cost to serve these communities. As I mentioned, today's environment, there's no logic to who's paying what. It's different jurisdictions have made partnerships with different partners over the years. I wish I could tell you what an average 911 call cost. There is no such thing in Lake County because it's all over the board. So going from today's environment to a joint governance environment where everyone is a partner and finding a solution to share that cost in some equitable fashion is a big challenge. And we believe we've found the solution to that. It comes up with it starts with a few assumptions. And first is that the PSAP budget is basically divided in a 75-25 division between fire service and police service. And that's based on some national averages, on comparisons of other large consolidated PSAPs. And frankly, it's a pretty close reflection to what the fire jurisdictions in total are paying today and what the law enforcement jurisdictions in total are paying today. So that's a first assumption we've come up with. Then we looked at 3 factors to consider, which is the activity, the workload for each of these 37 different jurisdictions, the population they each serve, and then we also looked at EAV, equalized assessed valuation of that jurisdiction. The theory being is that a resident population may not always be the most accurate reflector of the impact a jurisdiction has. That EAV might balance that out because you might have, as in Vernon Hill's case, a very large retail business sector that generates a lot of activities in police and fire services that a undeveloped area and maybe another jurisdiction with a lower overall EAV wouldn't generate that workload. Libertyville has a lot of restaurants and bars, and again, generates some work because of that, that business district. So using those 3 factors, we were able to work with some smarter people than me to come up with the right blend that finds the balance that keeps the most amount of jurisdictions at the middle of what their cost possibilities could be. No one wants to pay the highest solution, and I think everyone understands they're probably not going to pay the lowest solution. We landed on a calculation here that has everyone at about the midpoint. So if you ask me why 39, 39, 22 makes sense, it doesn't necessarily make sense, but it's equitable because of the 15 fire jurisdictions, 12 of them land right in the middle using this model to share the cost. And of the 22 police jurisdictions, 17 land right in the middle using this model. And the ones that don't fall in the middle with this model are less than, they're at 0.9 is the biggest variation. So we've been working on this for months. We've shared it with partners. No one's come up with a better solution to share the cost, and so we think that's the right approach. So using that cost, I'll turn it back over to Director Lyons to tell you the impact of that.
Okay, diving into Vernon Hills specifics on the current estimations. So the village currently accounts for its dispatching activities in the dispatch center fund. So there's about $2.4 million of annual expenditures in there. And then currently we have about $500,000 of that cost covered by 911 surcharge for Vernon Hills. And then we also receive about $1 million from Libertyville, half of which is their 911 surcharge revenues. So after we back the revenues out that cover these expenses, the village is left to cover about $867,000 as shown under current cost on the left of the slide. Now, as we transition into Lakecom, the village's dispatch fund will be dissolved, and the amount of the village will pay for dispatch services will become reported just on one line in the general fund under dispatching services. And if you look on the right side, here's the estimated years 1 through 6, what that cost might look like. And then transition expenses, as come July 1 of this year, Lakecom would be a new entity. Membership contributions will be paid no earlier than July 1 of the following year, 2025. So this creates a need for transition funding. We are fortunate enough to have the fully funded building, as Chief had mentioned, to start the new entity, so there's not a significant burden of debt. As Lakecom will be a brand new entity, obtaining traditional loans on its own will be unlikely. Some of the potential members have been considering loans to Lakecom to provide the necessary transitional funding. And this, I've just built an example here where Vernon Hills would loan the entity $2 million. It would be paid in over a 10-year period with an annual payment of principal and interest. And again, the interest rate will be reflective of the current 10-year yield of the Treasury yield at that time of the loan. So just what does that look like on an annual basis? the village would receive about $250,000 of principal and interest each year. And again, it doesn't have to be $2 million, it can be less, but just wanted to kind of show that picture. And if the board desires to continue as a potential lender as discussions continue, the village is in a position to facilitate this and continue to maintain its financial sound position. So in other words, we can afford this if we need to go down that route. Although this loan would pay interest, this is not an investment alternative. Just want to make that clear. The main focus of this loan would be to assist in getting Lakecom up to speed. If lending funds to Lakecom is something the board has no interest in, it would also be helpful to hear your thoughts tonight or as early as possible on that. So,
So on that note, we're continuing our transition discussions with our PSAP partners. And again, we're going through our transition process. And one of the items that we're really need to solve in the next probably 45 to 60 days is that upfront funding. And so what we're looking for this evening is not a commitment from the committee regarding the possibility of a loan, but if there's any objection to that as a possibility, we'd like to know now so that we don't continue with those conversations. Anything obviously that we would do would come back before the board, would be fully vetted by staff and have clear outline of how that loan would work and be facilitated. But again, as we're having these discussions, we want to know if we have at least a green light to continue those discussions with our partners, or if this is kind of a deal breaker and we shouldn't proceed.
Well, and since we started into this from the very beginning, it was clear at the start, but it's become even more clear that this is absolutely the right thing to do. And since we're in me personally, since we're in the kind of financial position we are, I have no problem with the loan because it's not really a risky type use of our money, and it'll all be paid back.
So what are the total transition expenses that
Sure.
that we're looking for between all of the municipalities?
So I want to say, Chief, was it around $6 million is what they're thinking for the year one? And so I'll talk to us on our last slide here this evening. So just to give you a quick timeline, so again, our hope is that in May, we're in a position to sign our governing documents, which will establish Lakecom and Vernon Hills' entry into Lakecom. The hope then is by July 1 deadline, that is the deadline for all potential members of Lakecom to join. You would then have the member board form. They would nominate their executive committee, and the governance would begin. Between July of 2024 and the potential go-live in July of 2025, there's a lot of work that still needs to happen. You need to hire an executive director. Further staff will be need to hire from there. You're purchasing various things for the actual operation and facility to get that off the ground and running. And so there's a lot of expense that's going to take place before any revenue can be collected. Again, no revenue is going to be collected from the future members until there's actually a go-live and a service being provided. So what that means in the meantime is that Vernon Hills PSAP, and same with Countryside, is going to continue to operate in that year. So as we talk about transition and what that looks like for us, from a people standpoint, we not only need to work on hiring individuals to eventually join Lakecom, but we also need to work on retaining our current telecommunicators in the Vernon Hills PSAP and Countryside PSAP until that changeover takes place. Now, the exciting thing there is that there's a great opportunity in this new organization for hopefully our current employees to have a chance to work in this new, brand new state-of-the-art facility and entity. We've also mentioned previously before that the chief and his team have been working with our TC union on a stay agreement to help incentivize those telecommunicators to stay with Vernon Hills until that changeover date to make sure that we can continue to provide the service for our constituents. So basically $6 million is our estimate. It could be less than that, but that's our ballpark estimate of what we're going to need without any new revenue coming in to cover those year one costs as we transition from an on-paper organization to an actual go-live up and running facility.
Other comments or questions from the board?
What's our current cost to run right now? What we have, is it 4? Is that 4.1?
So
No. To run our call center right now. What's our?
I could, yeah, I could speak to this. So this is a study that was done in 2018 that asked for a apples-to-apples comparison and a true estimate of, with building depreciation, everything in. So with Vernon Hills and Countryside together, the estimate was 4.1 million in 2018. What we really spend dollar-wise net out of budget is probably better for Tom to answer.
Yeah, about 2.4 million for Vernon Hills plus Countryside's was about 600,000.
Another 600.
Yeah, roughly, I think it was 680, and obviously it continues to grow annually, so.
Right, so you're looking at north of 3 million, but not including depreciation and other building type costs, which would be included in this true cost.
So, and then once we go to the new system, we're looking at about $900,000. Our cost then, basically our portion. I'm sorry, not 709,000.
Correct.
Right column. Correct. And so there now you have, is it 7 that are going to be putting in for these transition costs? Is that the goal? 7 PSAPs or how many?
So the opportunity to contribute to the upfront costs are open to all members. Obviously, there are some communities that are in a better financial position than others to do that. But right now, it's an opportunity for anyone, if they want, to offer that upfront loan opportunity.
And why 10 years, Tom?
10 years
Is that just the
was
standard?
feasible to not have the debt service burden in the early years be so large. So that way, if you're receiving loan proceeds, you don't have to spend a quarter of it back out to pay debt service.
That's a good point. So, but there's probably potential that it'll end early. They'll probably want to, depending on
I think
what
it's
the
early to
revenues
speak
are.
on that now. I mean, there's a potential, I suppose, if the funding is there, but I wouldn't want to say that that's something we're considering at the moment.
So I was just jotting some notes down as we're going through this. So what are the
Trustee
true?
Shank, if I could, your question, that previous question, I'd love to address real quick is, this is our outlook, and you can see it actually is reduced expenses for us, but, and this is pretty common amongst the PSAPs, but many of our partners are seeing pretty significant increases in what they're going to have to spend in the Lakecom model. And so this is where covering transition costs, being ready to onboard, having a goal of getting as many of the 37 in is really a goal. It's a little easier for those jurisdictions that are seeing a reduction in expenditures. Some of our partners are really facing some tough financial uphill to get to a level, equitable playing field.
That's one of my next questions is, so you have some of these towns that aren't as well off financially or able to, so what is the highest or the top 4 or 5 increases that you see? Like if they were paying $300,000 one year, are they over $1 million now? Like what are some of the highest, like what's the gap there?
We've got a lot of estimates of that. Let me share with you that.
And this is using the 39-39-22 rule?
That is correct. Yeah. So I can tell you that some of our partners, without any adjustments, would see 200% increases. Some of them are 100% increase. So one of the things that the partners are doing is working to soften that increase. So anyone that has an increase beyond 25%, there's a methodology to soften and smooth that increase over a number of years. That's part of the budget of Lakecom, is providing a smoothing on-ramping for those jurisdictions.
And so when you look at like their revenue for this, they're getting currently now a portion of the 911 surcharge, these communities, or not much?
Some are.
Some are?
It's
okay.
case by case.
So if they're part of this, they won't get any of that to help offset, right? Because that all surcharge is now going to go to
That's correct.
the rock, basically. I mean, you call it the rock.
The goal is to have all of the surcharges spent under the same interest of the operations of Lakecom. So you could argue that everyone that's a member of Lakecom will benefit from the expenditure of those surcharges, and we want to avoid a battle in the future about how dollars should be spent to make sure the governance of those surcharge expenditures are aligned with the governance of the operations. Your answer doesn't befit a simple, I'm sorry, your question, I can't give you a simple answer. There are some jurisdictions that are part of what's called the Lake County ETSB. There are other jurisdictions like us in Libertyville that presently have a joint ETSB together that directly get funds from the state and then apply it to operations. And there's every flavor in between around Lake County. And so we're trying to really, it's very disruptive what we're proposing, but hopefully reset it the right way, and everyone will have an equitable cost and an equitable benefit from those surcharge dollars.
So my final question, forgive me, board members, for all my questions, but so basically the revenue generators are the 911 surcharge and the fees the towns pay. What else?
Perhaps a contribution from Lake County to cover services we may be providing to the sheriff. We're just not down that path far enough right now.
And sheriff department is not currently, is it sheriff and Waukegan that are not joining in on this? Is that?
So I can say this. When we started this planning, the IGA #1, Waukegan was a member and the sheriff was a member of that effort.
Right.
Waukegan decided to not continue with the planning. They're on with our technology, and that went live today, as the sheriff is on with technology. Okay. Sheriff also decided to not continue with the planning at this point. We are building an organization that will allow for not just them, but any other police or fire jurisdiction in Lake County, which is presently served by perhaps a third or fourth PSAP that are out there. The goal is long-term, make sure we can onboard any member. The facility is built to allow for us to eventually serve all police and fire jurisdictions in Lake County.
Thank you.
Can I comment on something?
Sure, go ahead, Mayor.
Okay. Chief, is there any, support from the county board to get Waukegan and the sheriff's department, involved in joining this whole process?
There have been ongoing conversations between members of Lake County Board. I know that to be the case. I will say that there is a large part of this expense, which are the variable cost. Director Lyons kind of broke down, we've got a core cost and a variable cost, people being mostly the variable. So as we've lost some of those planning partners along the way, and as we may lose perhaps some additional agencies, that really impacts that variable expense. And again, it's not as if we are all sharing the upfront capital purchase of a building, and by losing a partner, we all have to make up that difference. So I think we're all hopeful that we're building something with good foundation that will allow for those parties and those jurisdictions, when they decide it's in their best interest to come on board. Our vision is Lakecom will welcome them with open arms, but they have to make that decision themselves.
Even though the county is building a $40 million facility.
Yes, sir. It's there continues to be ongoing conversations about how to best serve even those members that aren't continuing in planning, there will still be some responsibility to serve and support. For instance, the technology side of this, Waukegan and the sheriff are all in. And, you know, that is a core piece of working together, is being on the same CAD and RMS system. So we're building something for the long term here. This is a type of organization that if you build it right. Only people want to join, no one ever leaves. And just to our south, Northwest Central is a joint governance PSAP system and JETSB system that started, I think, with 6 or 7 agencies in the 80s. And now it's a wonderful model of how to do this. And we've copied a lot of their best practices, but it's taken decades to really build that. I was speaking with members of the state, Illinois State Police Communications staff. This is believed to be the largest consolidation in the state ever. And so the fact that we've been working on it for as long as we have, we should probably give ourselves a little bit of break, because it's a lot.
Well, and then I got one last question. Are there union issues with the Lake County Sheriff's Department and Waukegan to oppose this?
I can't speak to their union issues. I can tell you that we are negotiating with our unions on a stay agreement, as well as other partners that are invested in going forward. Our goal is not only to incentivize them to stay through the changeover to Lakecom, but also to incentivize as many of them as possible to go work for Lakecom, because that serves us well. I can tell you this isn't, what we're building here as far as this organization isn't something that an employee union can really, you know, take action on. You know, they might be able to try and influence a jurisdiction to join or not join, but what we're doing, this is up to the governing boards of each of these partners to decide to move forward or not.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This slide here, real quick. Year one is based on what annual budget and how many participating?
So that's the full 37 agencies, and that's with a gross Lakecom budget of 17.6 million. So then when I walk through backing out the estimated ETSB revenues that Lakecom would be receiving, we had a $9.1 million net budget, and that $9.1 million is what's going to be spread amongst the members.
What are you using for other revenue?
Other revenue is what the chief mentioned to,
Lake
our
County?
services provided to Lake County or others for transfers, things like that.
So how many do you anticipate on day one when the doors open? You have 30. You use 37. Are all 37 going?
Will be built and ready to serve all 37. It's just that there's the 37 agencies are represented by, I think, 31 or 32 jurisdictions, because some of them have a police and fire.
Right.
Like, for instance.
Right.
Those governing boards have to have this conversation and have to decide whether or not to adopt so that we can do this. Again, I think these are estimates we're providing.
No, I understand that. So
it could change,
but this
one
is
way
best
or
case,
another.
This is a positive case scenario, because you're assuming all 37 agencies. Is there? I mean, you have scenarios for. I mean, when there's less agencies, there's also less budget because there's less calls and things like that, and what you need. But you have, if you're anticipating 37 agencies, that's where we're at. But it could be potentially, say, 25, correct?
It could be.
You know, I use that's an arbitrary number.
Of course.
So we have to kind of like, and I'm sure as, you know, our impact could be much higher each year, and on transition cost. I'm not saying I'm for giving transition cost loan. You know, I'll just be upfront about that. But you know, I think we also have to be sure that, you know, those first few years might be a little rougher than $709,000. Is that an accurate assessment?
I
Vernon
think
Hills.
it's fair to say that this is the best estimate, depending on who we deselect, doing some hypotheticals, which agency deselects by
Right.
joining or not. Sometimes our cost goes down, sometimes our cost goes up. It depends on if you, let me explain
What
it
their
this
needs
way.
are.
Well,
Or if you were
what size
subsidizing
agency
it.
it is.
Yeah.
Is it an agency that all of a sudden is going to lower the amount of talk groups? There's only so many first responders you can put on one radio channel. And whether that's fire or police, each talk group needs a certain number of telecommunicators to support it. So if it's if we lose an agency and it doesn't impact the number of talk groups, that's an increased cost. If we lose an agency and we can reduce a talk group and that's fewer personnel needed, there's a savings. So
Any way we look at this for Vernon Hills, it's a win across the board, is the way I look at it. Whether
financially, I think public safety, absolutely. Financially, I think we've had a hard time looking at a scenario where we wind up paying more in
given
the
our
long run.
current scenario. Right, that's the whole thing. So,
Yes.
I'm just trying to be, you know me, I need to be very clear with the numbers to understand fully. But I think you guys all did a great job in getting us to this point. It's a good thing for Lake County, you know.
Yeah, in terms of public safety, it's a definite positive. I mean, it's something that addresses the more contemporary issue of cell phones and that. Yes, Mayor.
Yes, and the response times should improve across the board.
Yeah, because you won't have all that time transferring calls.
Right. I mean, which is going to save lives, property, all of the above.
Absolutely.
You know, it's worth the effort.
Chief
And
Smith?
so, Chiefs, stay the course.
Trustee Shank, I just wanted to make one other comment regarding different organizations coming or going or not coming along with us. As these PSAPs begin to commit over the next couple months too, one thing to understand too is there aren't going to be a whole lot of options left for places to go. Well, they're going to end up going to, if they're not coming to Lakecom, they're going to be going to other organizations that are going to be charging similar costs that are going to be more equalized and equitable than what they see now in our current environment too. So
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking like, what are the other options? Unless they have their own dispatch center, what are their other options? They're going to like price themselves. They're not going to be able to do it, and likely they're going to be increasing the response times, which will affect public safety, and public gets wind of that.
I think it's, those are all good questions for those jurisdictions. We're coming to you with one option, right? And in those jurisdictions that want to explore different options.
They have to. They're
absolutely.
financially restricted. They have to.
Absolutely. No one blames them. So we'll see what, I will say this, there are limits to options. There are limited options, but there are options, and our goal is to create, a state-of-the-art joint governance in Lake County and hopefully watch it build from there.
You're driven by public safety.
Yes, sir.
Anything else? So it sounds, Chief, you got your guidance here that, all right, sounds like I'm not hearing anybody say anything except this is full speed ahead.
The transition amount loan, that's still kind of you have $2 million in there.
We're going to use 2 million as a ceiling on that.
As a ceiling?
It could come down potentially.
Okay.
And again, we'll have more information on that probably near the end of May, beginning of June.
And it comes out of the general fund then?
Yeah, that's correct.
Well, I got one last comment. I want to thank we don't always have two chiefs in the council chambers. So I appreciate your time and effort, guys. To the chiefs.
To the chief.
To the Chiefs.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it.
Is there a chance that they may need a larger loan amount if the other municipalities can't afford to provide that?
It's possible. We'll still use 2 million for now, and if something changes to that effect, we'll come back. But I think we're comfortable with 2 million as being enough to get us through with contributions from other entities.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Is that why you guys turned off the lights to save some energy so we can for this? Save
And
some
as
costs?
always, we thank public service responders, first responders, because like I always, you've seen it several times recently in the news and that when something really bad happens, we all run away and first responders always run toward it. So great respect for what you guys are doing. Okay, if there's nothing else on this, then the other item on our agenda tonight is the review of the social service grant applications for 2024.
Yes, thank you, Trustee Cook. As you all know, the village has a annual program, which is our social service grant program. This program was established back in 2003, and it is used to provide grant funding support for local charitable, nonprofit, and civic organizations that provide service to the Vernon Hills community. Since 2003, the village has issued over $829,000 in grants to local service groups serving Vernon Hills. This past January, the village opened the application period for the 2024 social service grants. In total, 14 agencies applied for the grant funding and a total requested amount of $71,500. Recently, staff met with Trustees Cook and Forrester to review the grant applications, and we arrived at a recommendation for discussion by the board this evening. Included in your board packet are the 2024 social service grant applications, along with a summary chart which outlines the individual 2023 grant awards, the 2024 requested grant amounts, and the recommended 2024 grant awards. Overall, the recommendation for consideration is to award a total of $63,500 in grants across 14 different agencies. At this time, I'll turn it over to the committee for discussion. And again, Trustees Cook and Forrester assisted in the grant review and are available to answer any questions.
Well, I'd like to thank Trustee Cook and Trustee Forrester and staff for the time and effort probably put in on this to come to these numbers. Because, you know, you read through the report, you know, there's a lot of detail, you know, to really chew on. So for this only to go up $1,000, you could recommend it any more strongly if it's presented on the summary sheet. So can I make a motion to approve the $63,500?
Yeah, you can make a motion, given that we have a
Yeah,
chairman
you're
pro
not.
tem.
Yeah, you're not chairing, so sure.
Well, then I'll withdraw my attempt.
No, there's a motion made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Yeah.
Okay, a motion, a second. Any other discussion? As you noticed, there were only 2 increases, safe
Yeah.
place and special recreation. Everything else stayed the same as last year, so that's the reason for the very slight increase.
And there were a few that requested a little more that you
Yes.
did
Yeah,
not choose
yeah.
to.
Yeah, we pretty much stayed with last year's with those 2 exceptions. And they're all good agencies. All of them do at least some service for, you know, do substantial services for Vernon Hills, so.
Yeah, I
yeah.
just wanted to add to that and say that, thank the variety of organizations that applied for these and continue to apply, because when you review the applications, you can see that they contribute to support our residents and are a variety of organizations, so we're covering off on a lot of needs for the residents.
Amen.
Okay, so we have a motion, a second, to approve the social service grants for 2024 in the amount of $63,500. Is there any other discussion on this? Okay, hearing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Schenk?
Aye.
Trustee Forster?
Aye.
Trustee Markwart?
Aye.
Trustee Oppenheim?
Aye.
President Byrne?
Aye.
Chairman Pro Tem Cook?
Aye, motion carries. Okay, do we have close?
There will be no closed session this evening, and then on the social service grants, we'll have an ordinance at our next board meeting officially approving those dollar amounts.
Okay, so then we're ready to adjourn the committee. of the whole.
I want to call out Chief Smith real quick. They just recently got into the 8th grade, the entire 8th grade of Hawthorne District 73 are now CPR certified, correct, Chief?
That is correct.
And that was all on Countryside?
Yep.
And Countryside paid for it all?
It was a joint effort between us and the school, but
It's 73,
there was
but
no cost to the school.
there is,
We end up doing a,
so they all did it in what, like an afternoon, each class,
It was
right?
over 3 days, and obviously used a lot of the faculty that we had certified as CPR instructors as well to help with the efforts. But we had our paramedics, obviously Fireman Tony, as well as staff from the school to get that done. And it was very successful.
And how many would you say got certified those days?
I believe it was just about 500.
500, and we got to hit the high schools next, right?
It's our goal.
And the goal to get somebody CPR certified in every household in Vernon Hills, right?
I love it.
Love
Absolutely.
it. Thanks, Chief.
Tony's
Great job.
retiring though at the end of the.
What?
When is Tony retiring?
Tony is retiring in March of next year, and plans on staying on part-time for a bit longer, but we're actively working on making sure that program and the legacy of Tony lives on. So
Yeah, he's been certifying the 8th grades there for so many years.
Certified by him for.
Yeah.
Well, they had
it's
stopped it
great.
for a while, right?
Yeah.
And now that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying, Thank you.
Okay. If there's nothing else to come before us, then is there a motion to adjourn the committee of the whole?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you so much for coming.